subscribe to the channel and like. If you are not a lesbian, of course. What experience of yours is so crazy you don't tell people about it because they wouldn't believe you? I was on a train and this train had one of those chains which you pull in case of an emergency and it stops the train, and if you pull it for no reason you can face up to 2 years in prison and a huge fine. So I was just sitting, and when I decided to get up to go to the washroom, I was kind of stuck, so I used the nearest thing to help me get up, and what I pulled was the chain. Suddenly the train stopped, and I was like, oh crap, here I go to the prison. When suddenly people started running out of the train. P.S. The train had no doors. You would understand if you know what an average local Indian train looks like. I don't know about other countries, and what I realized was that a compartment of the train was on fire. So that's how I survived from going to prison and accidentally saved the train. I told this story to a friend, but he would not believe me, so I just let it go. TLDR, I saved train and no go prison. Opened the fridge and edit, jar of mustard came falling down. It hit the ground and I already thought, great, now I have to clean all of it up, but I genuinely didn't hear it hitting the ground. When I looked down there was nothing there. No glass shards, mustard, nothing. Looked around for a good 5 minutes questioning my reality. Turns out it kinda repelled of the ground and landed in the winner shelf next to the fridge, like 1.5 feet above the floor. Upright. Standing. It straight up did a bottle flip off the floor. It dropped a solid 6 feet on hard ground and just bounced. Still questioning the laws of physics to this date. When I was younger I worked at a popular theme park in the UK as a ride assistant. One of the rides I worked on was the River Rapids. 2 young Scouse lads who had obviously been drinking got on, and it was clear they were going to be a pain in the ass. As the raft came towards the end, they both were running around the outsides of it. The raft hits the wall, and they both fell, and this is near the lift section of the ride, which, if they'd been snagged, would have torn them up badly. I ran down, and God knows how, managed to pull them both out. They were both swiftly escorted to the medical center and I'm assuming off park. The same day, after I finished work, I went to go and see a friend for a few hours, and on my way home I follow a car that is all over the place. The car hits a curb and flips onto its roof. I stop my car, run across, yank the doors open and pull both of the occupants out. Same 2 lads had pulled out of the water at work earlier in the day. I was like 12 years old and played with my dog in the backyard. He suddenly stopped and just looked at my leg. There was a piece of wood in my leg. It was 8 centimeters long and in 90-degree angle in my leg. It didn't hurt. I didn't feel anything. To this day I'm wondering how this stick found its way into my leg. One time after school I was emptying my bag on my bed. I had a sandwich wrapped in cling wrap from lunch that I didn't eat. I dropped the sandwich on the floor and I went to pick it up. I couldn't find it anywhere. I checked under my bed, in my bag, all over the floor, and under any items. I never found that sandwich. Edit, thanks for the silver, kind stranger. Once when I was 8 I was climbing out of the bathtub after showering. Since I was wet and shit, my mom wrapped me up in a towel, so my hands were wrapped as well. I ended up tripping over the edge of the bathtub and face planted onto the ground, where I just laid there kinda comatose for a second. So I tried to get up, blood flowing down my face from a cut in my head and my nose, and my bucket of crabs nearby, this was a seaside resort, toppled over and went all over me, and they were like in a blood frenzy or something, because they pinched me all over, so I started rolling on the ground. Lovely experience BTW. My family kinda just stared at me. I bled from my nose for 3 hours after being rescued from the crabs and got sent to hospital, where my nose actually wasn't broken. My family refuses to acknowledge it ever happened, even though I have a hospital bracelet with that date. Oddest thing ever was crossing the border at the Golden Triangle from Thailand into Myanmar. Had a heat stroke due to dehydration and passed out in the middle of the street right after the passport control. Woke up to 5 armed soldiers pointing rifles in my face. Don't speak a word of Thai or any other Asian language. I signaled I need to drink water with my hands and they gave me a Coca-Cola and helped me sit down in a nearby chair. It's too bad you didn't speak the language because they were saying, hey, you're finally awake. You were trying to cross the border, right? When I was a teenager I almost got run over by Robert Pattinson in my hometown. It's a smaller city between Bruges and Ghent. He was driving a Mercedes, probably on his way from Brussels to the hotel he was staying in on the coast. I'm 100% sure it was him. He was in Brussels for a premiere for the latest Twilight movie at the time. Only told my dad. When I was 9 or 10 years old, I was walking around in our flat and wondering what was itching below my foot. So I looked, and I had a thumbtack sticking all the way inside my heel. I have no clue why, but it didn't hurt at all. I had a huge shock though. Also interesting to note that the hole is still there 12 years later. Once as a landlord I had to break up a 18-person orgy. We had noise complaints which were common. Went to the room to check and things were odd. They would barely open the door to speak to me. They had the weirdest assembly of clothing on and there was this weird salty smelling fog in the room. Finally, just for documentation's sake I had to have them sign my report and they said, do you want all of us to sign? I said what? They turned on the lights, and in the middle of the floor was a giant pile of naked ass. We are talking every gender, every position, a clown, a midget, a toilet seat, all in one big pile gyrating. My presence wasn't going to stop the party. I then looked up at the TV. They had a gigantic 80+ inch TV, super high definition, playing the most explicit porn I've ever seen. I mean, you could see razor burn. I had to shut down the party because the buildings were shit and there was an occupancy limit in each room. You could only have 7 people in at a time and they were over quota all at once. Like 15 angry naked people got up and started storming out of the room in various degrees of nakedness. I had to return to my office to write a report up and were we told to be as explicit as possible, so I included the razor burn, the sloppy ham smacks sounds, everything. I got a call in the morning from the female manager going, yeah, we don't need that much detail. You are in trouble. The owner wants to speak with you. So she put on the elderly male owner and he exclaimed, that was the best story I've ever read. Please write more. One day, completely out of the blue, my daughter, 8, started telling me she wanted to look out the window to see shooting stars. I told her it's very rare to see any shooting stars where we live, Yonkers, New York. She was really adamant that we should look and try to see one anyway, so I walk with her over to our living room window and look out with her. I swear not 10 seconds had passed before a meteor went streaking by, closer than any I had ever seen. You could see the trail it left in the sky and it glowed bright red. She got so excited and ran to tell my wife that she saw one. My wife does not believe that me or my daughter saw a meteor that quickly. I swear on my life it happened. This happened 8 years ago. I, 10 years old, was walking my dog down the street with my father. And my dog decided to take a piss on the car wheel of a Mercedes-Benz. A couple minutes later that exact Mercedes-Benz slowly drives past us and then U-turns around and slowly drives past us again. This time he opens his window and shouts "fuck you" to us multiple times without explanation. After cursing at us for like a minute straight, he speeds off back into the neighborhood, so we just continue on our walk. As soon as we get back into our street we see the man walking towards us and pull out a gun. He aims it at us and shouts, "Your dog pee my wheel," over and over again. Of course my dad gets very angry and shouts back at him, "Do you think this is the fucking Wild West?" He then starts shooting at us, but misses completely. Then my dad sprints at him and manages to tackle him to the ground. I go and get my mother and we call the police. Meanwhile my dad still has the guy pinned down. The police come and take the guy away and we then find out that he was a big Chinese drug dealer in the area. So this is basically the story of how my dad took down a Chinese gangster whilst unarmed. My god, this better be true. I love it. I saw a girl who contracted a rare African parasite shoot crack, causing tiny worms to crawl out of the hole in her arm and from the corners of her eyes. It happened. I'm sure it did. I saw the worms. She held one up and said, "See, I told you, this is what they look like." I threw it on the floor and burned it with a lighter. I wasn't even on drugs because I had a drug test for probation in the morning. It's like my own brain is trying to convince me it didn't happen, but I'm sure of it. I have some vivid memories from when I was a baby. Most people's earliest memories are from when they are toddlers, but I remember bits and pieces of being an infant and getting breastfed by my mom. I also recall listening to her singing songs to me while rocking me and sitting in my crib for hours listening to music playing. I don't remember everything day by day, but there are quite a few memories from that time. My earliest memory that I can fully recall is hearing my mom and dad arguing in clear view of my crib. I don't remember what they were saying, but I know they were shouting at each other, and I was getting upset because of it. Since I was in a crib, I know I couldn't have been a year old yet. It's not so crazy, but I feel like every time I've tried to tell it, people don't believe me. I was driving around a city pretty lost before cell phones W/GPS and was stopped at the end of an alleyway waiting for an opportunity to turn when a cop pulled up to my right. He rolled down the window and motioned for me to roll down my window. I was of course super nervous, thinking that perhaps I drove erratically due to being lost, or maybe I'm somewhere I shouldn't be. Once my window was down, he does a "what's up" nod and asks, "Wanna race?" I'm now even more confused, but he repeats the question. I tell him no, and that I'm lost. He asks me where I need to go, and I give him the name of the restaurant. He tells me to follow him, and I get to follow him all across the city, going through stop signs and lights, stopping traffic every once in a while when he'd wave for me to pull over again, and he'd park beside me and give me a heads up of what turns we'd be doing next. Led me all the way to the restaurant. I once left my completely fine and working mobile phone in the kitchen and went to lay down for a little on my roommate's couch. He and I were alone at home, and he is a very active gamer and was basically gaming throughout my nap. When I woke up, I wanted to get my phone, but when I went and got it, it had a signal for SIM not connected on it. So I open up the phone to look at my SIM, just to find the metal part of the SIM card completely scratched and utterly destroyed. Of course I asked my roommate what he did to my phone, but he just said he was gaming the whole time and was just as astounded as I was. To this day we are completely flabbergasted and do not know what happened, but I'm pretty positive that we have a poltergeist in our flat. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel and like. Share your stories in the comments.